Hello, welcome to Unschooled Theology. I am one of your hosts, Derick. With me today is Evan. Hello, good day, sir.
Hey, good day to you, sir.
All right, so we are continuing with Genesis 2:7, where we see that man is created of the dust of the ground and the breath of God. And last episode, we looked a little bit at the idea of being sort of this hybrid creature, as well as focusing on the dust. This episode, we're going to look more particularly at the idea of the breath and the significance of that. Now, it should be noted that the word for breath here, nesma, is used only 25 times in the Bible, and it refers exclusively to the breath of God and man, whereas the other term for breath, ruah, is used over 400 times, and it references the breath of God, man, animals, even false gods. So it's a very significant kind of breath, I guess, that we're seeing in this moment. And the thing I want to start with here is the breath into the nostrils. And that may seem like a weird place to start, but again, the thing we've talked about previously, which is the idea of, no, these were the words that were passed on, likely orally and then eventually written down. And you're not wasting words in that circumstance when you're telling something orally. There's significance to those words. So why the nostrils, right? That seems very odd, especially when we think that, think about CPR, right?
Yeah.
We go into the mouth, right? It seems generally like the mouth is the best access to the lungs.
Yeah.
So if we remember, again, the idea of God's creation, this bara creation, this selecting out of the many possible things available to him, we should question why he chose certain things. And it leads one to ask a question you probably never thought you'd ask, but why noses? Of all the things God could create, why did he create noses, right? It's a very weird thing. And when we think about the nose, I don't know, it seems like an odd choice to make. It's certainly the oddest part of the face. It's weird. It protrudes forward. It's a very odd thing, right?
What do you have against noses?
They truly are odd. And you know how you know they're odd is this idea that we can see faces sometimes in different like machinery and things that we create. You can often see a face without a nose. You can see the eyes and the smile. In fact, a lot of kids, when they draw a face or draw a smiley face, it doesn't have a nose.
It does look weirder when you put a nose on a smiley face.
It does. And so
you ever tried to do that? It always ruins that.
It does.
I've done it.
It does. And but you don't recognize a face in just like, well, that's a nose and a mouth, but there's no eyes. You don't see a face in things that way, right? So there's something fundamentally weird about the nose. It stands out.
It protrudes, literally.
Yes,
protrudes.
Exactly. It protrudes. It just seems like an odd choice. Now the nose, okay. We'll see in the Bible that the nose often symbolizes a point of connection with the invisible spiritual. And the reason I say that is that smells are very unique. Smells are entirely invisible and they cannot be confirmed by other senses. For instance, I have two dogs, and so we'll go to something that has a profound smell, which is, when the dog does its business outside. You can see that business. You can touch that business when you have the duty of picking it up. You can confirm it with these other senses, right? Smell, though, when you smell the dog's business, you're not actually smelling that, though, right? You're smelling something that has left it. You're smelling something that has come off it. And so you're smelling something that's entirely visible, that you cannot confirm with touch or taste or anything else. You can't confirm it. It's a totally invisible thing, just as the spiritual realm is to us as well, right? And if you want another point at which the Bible sort of confirms this barrier crossing dynamic of the nose, right, is the role of smell within sacrifices. Sacrifices in the Bible are regularly described as offering a pleasing aroma to God, not a taste, not a sight, not a touch. There are things that are described as pleasing in the sight of God, but smell is the thing that is highlighted with the sacrifice, because it is crossing that spiritual barrier, right? The sacrifice is this very spiritual activity, the earthly giving to the spiritual, right? Almost like the trees going back upwards. The rain comes down, and the sacrifice comes up in a way.
Smell tends to have a powerful connection to our memory too.
That as well, yes.
In terms of smells can elicit certain things, and they can cross memory boundaries of a lot of time, of decades worth of time. A smell can elicit some sort of memory that's not. Yes. That wasn't expected to be there. Yeah, I guess there is a power.
Yeah. So the significance, I guess, of breathing through the nostrils here is that it's a barrier crossing moment, right? It is God bringing the spiritual down into the earthly. And that's sort of what the nose and the aroma and the going through the nose signifies, right? Yeah. And the nose is, the mouth can both eat and taste and breathe, right? But the nose is exclusively breath. And so that's the significance here, is there's nothing, taste-like about this action. It is purely this breath, this spiritual connection point, right? And that's what we see in the nose, oddly enough. And so just as dust symbolizes our mortality here, the breath here symbolizes how life comes directly from God. Because it's not until you have the breath that it is described as a living creature, right? So we have this dead dust that has been formed, but God is the source of life. Nothing else is the source of life. The earth doesn't provide a source of life. Only God and his breath provides a source of life. That is another thing that is sort of captured in this verse, right?
Yeah.
And then lastly, I want to hit here. This is something I think is pretty important that is often glossed over. But we mentioned in the previous episode the ordering of this verse. And I think there's something very significant to the fact that the emphasis here is on the dust first and the breath second. Because of what that describes humanity as. It describes humanity as beings that are earthly first. We are more earthly than we are spiritual, right? Yeah. We are earth first. We're not told God breathed and then created a vessel to house that breath. Which in another way of saying it, we're not souls that are then given bodies, right? But rather we're bodies that are given souls.
Yeah.
And so this might not seem particularly important at first, but when we think about the significance of the virgin birth of Christ, I think that's where it really jumps out, the contradiction, right? Because what we see in Jesus is we see a soul, something that is spiritual first, that is then given a body, right? We see the inverse, and we see that sort of design, right? And what we can sort of take from that is that to truly become the image of God is to become beings which are spiritual first and earthly second. And this is emphasized in places in the New Testament as well. And I think understanding the symbolism here is important, because Paul talks about the idea of the spirit being willing, but still falling into sin because of the weakness of the flesh.
Yeah.
So it's that earthly vessel that is holding him down, right? But one day the breath will be rehoused in a glorified body, right? And in that way, we will become beings that are spiritual first and earthly second, right? In kind of a new heaven, new earth dynamic, right? We will give up this weak, pathetic earthly shell, and then the spirit, we will just be spirit first and then housed in a new body. And that is all captured in, or at least the basics of this symbolic dynamic is expressed, I think, in this initial verse here.
I think it captures our experience. Certainly the way we tend to experience the world is it does feel as though we are earthly primarily. Is that we don't feel, we oftentimes, it feels like we brush with things that are spiritual, and that that it feels almost astounding that we have spiritual capacity, but it isn't. Physical reality smacks us in the face, and makes itself primally clear to us that we are definitely physical beings, and so it makes sense that it would be ordered in that way, and it would make sense that the ideal place before us is to invert that relationship. That's interesting.
And Christ is, of course, the inversion of that as well,
exactly.
And that to me is actually the real significance of the virgin birth, is that it is the counter of what we see described in this verse. So all right, well, with that, we have finished another verse. Took 2 episodes, but we got one more done, so we'll keep plugging away next episode. So join us then, like, subscribe wherever you're at, to make sure you don't miss that episode. Comment, shoot us an email, unschooltheology@protonmail.com, and we will see you soon.